Good evening once again, and thank you for being with us. This is going to be a very, very interesting chat that we're going to have this evening because we're going to learn all about languaging different. We're going to look at how the world is actually a mirror, how very interesting, and it reflects back to us what we are or who we are. I have asked a couple of people to share in co-hosting with me. I didn't ask them until the last minute because I didn't want them to be prepared. I wanted it to be really off the cuff, and we'll bring them in a little while. But all of you are welcome to share when you'd like to. We will open the mic up for you 2 or 3 different times during the conversation and allow you to ask questions. I would ask that you mute your phone if you have animals in the background or noise be distracting to the other people that are joining us. We have a rather large group tonight. And for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Judy Goodman. And thanks for joining us and daring to step beyond conventional wisdom once again. So, we will begin this evening by saying, again, that the world will tell you who you are. And it is very important that we learn how to say what we really mean. We all grow up with imprinting. You've heard me say this word quite a number of times. We learn how to say things. We don't often stop and think just what the impact of our very words, our languaging, we don't stop to think what that impact is really all about. And not only do we have the audible voice speaking, as I'm speaking to you now, but we have body language. Another thing that you might not have considered, that your body, your posturing, your gesturing, the way you carry yourself actually speaks a lot about who you are and where you're at in your life. And sometimes simply by changing your posture or changing the way that you walk and carry your head rather than continuing to look down at your feet. You may be feeling, oh, who is me? It's been such a bad day. But the world around you, if you would just stop for a moment and consider, the world is mirroring back to you, because when you are posturing and languaging in that way, you are carrying an energy, and it may not be an audible voice, an audible message, but you're saying to people, stand back, leave me alone. And that may be what you mean to say, but it might not. It might not be what you're trying to say at all. You might just not be self-confident. You might not have that self-value, that worth. And so you may be carrying yourself that way, not realizing that you're sort of pushing away friends or the world or whatever. And, you know, there are safety issues that we must consider when we think about the way we walk and the way we carry ourselves. This has been brought into my awareness all too often lately, and I trust that in your neck of the woods, as we say down south, that you're not having the crime rate that we're having, but we are having an unusually high crime rate right now. Some people say that it's because of this extraordinary heat wave that we're having. It could be a lot of different things. There's some shifts going on. We just had a lunar eclipse. People have talked about being affected by that. So it could be a lot of different things that are occurring. We can talk about that at some point. But one of the things that we are cautioned about is our body language. It's how we carry ourselves, because when you have people that are looking for soft targets, they are watching the way you carry yourself, the language that you are presenting to the world. And when you carry yourself a little differently, it's not to say it can't happen, because it could happen to any of us, but it is to say that when someone is looking for a soft target, the more confident you carry yourself, the more aware you are, the more alert you are, then there are statistics that will show that it lessens your possibility for becoming that soft target for people. But I want to say that each of us have probably ask the question of who we are. And this is a little off the subject, but the final part of the story sort of says a lot about the world mirroring back to us. And I know that I'm no different than any of you in that at various points in my life, I have asked the question, and the word for me is Father or God, but I encourage you to use whatever word is correct and the God of your understanding to speak that way. But for me, it's Father. So I would ask the question, Father, who am I? Well, I wasn't asking the question because I thought I was Cleopatra, or I thought I was Caesar, or whatever. I just knew that I had an enormous burden, an enormous responsibility. I had an enormous gift, if you will, and that I would be doing so much with so many different people I didn't even know. And so for years, the question went on, Father, who am I? What is this about that I would carry this burden, because it is sometimes a burden, or this gift, because it is a gift, this passion, this knowing, this understanding, who am I? And Father answered me one day and he said, ask not who you are, listen, and they will tell you who you are, which brings me back to the world mirrors back to you what you are doing. So if you are a teacher, then someone will come up and say, wow, I learned something from what you said, or I enjoyed the presentation, or I can't believe you talked as if you were talking straight to me, or wow, when you listed the topics for tonight, I think you picked everything that I've been dealing with. Boy, that one fits several of you, because several of you contacted me and said, hey, did you personally choose everything I've ever dealt with in my life for the topic tonight? And the answer was no, I didn't personally pick it that way. It's really interesting how we all have so many of the same things that we are dealing with. But the world, your friends, your neighbors, your family, your coworkers are going to mirror back to you who you are. So it's really important that you understand the languaging that you are using, that you understand the posturing and the presentation of yourself to other people that are around you. So not only is it important to be aware of your countenance, it is important to be very aware of the languaging that you use. How often do we hear people say, when I feel better, I'll exercise? Oh, well, one better than that is, okay, when the weather cools off, I'm going to start my exercise program because it's just way too hot right now. And then the funny thing is, when the fall comes in, a little brisky out there right now, don't you think? And then the next thing you know, it's winter. It's a little too cool to be out there. Can't walk now. When it warms up, when it gets spring, I'll begin my exercise. And we go 5 years, 2 years, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, whatever. We just procrastinate and we keep putting it off. And so effectively what we're saying is, I don't count enough to be able to do these things and take care of myself. And when I say the word, when so and so happens, I will do thus and so, then we put into motion a chain of events that will never come because we are always waiting for that proverbial just the right thing to occur. So what you say becomes your reality. You must get into the space of understanding how powerful your words are, how incredibly important it is to say things in a little bit different way. If you say, once the divorce is over, I'm going to feel better, then you have set yourself up to feel badly until the divorce is over. And then logically speaking, once the divorce is over, you're going to go through some kind of letdown. Well, some of us might go through a celebration, who knows, but you'll go through that letdown period anyway, but you just set yourself up to continue on in the poor me routine of feeling bad. If you continue to say things in a negative sort of way, what you are doing is you're actually undermining your own willingness to step out of the issues that you're dealing with. If you say, when so and so happens, or later I will, or when, or if, or maybe, or possibly, then you are undermining your own willingness to make a change. And so, what I'm hoping that you will do, when I sent the email announcement out for the class, I did ask that you write down, that you begin immediately writing down some of your little catchphrases. And some are going to be a little bit more important to look at than others, but it's important to listen to yourself talking and watch the things you say. Watch the way you communicate with your husband or your employee or your employer, or with the person that's down the hallway or the people that you meet on the street. Watch what it is that you say. When someone says, "How are you doing?" if your response is, "Okay," well, then you're just okay. Your mind, body, and spirit immediately responds to, "Hey, it's an okay day. Cool it. We don't have to do a lot, because all this person wants to do is to be okay." But if you'll recall, when we started and someone said, "How are you?" I said, "I was great. I was fantastic." And then I think I ultimately said, uh, "I'm so good that if you would want to know what vitamin I was taking." So the messaging that I'm giving to my body at that time, to my mind, body, and my spirit, is to be upbeat, to be positive, to be as healthy as I possibly can, to overcome any obstacle that I might be dealing with at the moment or whatever. Who knows? Maybe I'm sleepy and tired. Maybe I'd rather be in bed. Of course, that's not true, because there's nowhere that I would rather be than to be here right now. But it is important that I pay attention to the things that I say daily. So if you did not write some of your catchphrases down, and if some of you did, I'm hoping that you'll feel comfortable in sharing some of those. And you don't have to identify yourself if you don't want to. It's okay. But I'm hoping that you will write down some of your phrases. And for the next few days, and even through this weekend where we've got holidays with maybe friends, and some of us will be alone, and during those times, we kind of go through those moments where we are procrastinating, or we're saying things, or we're languaging into our own feelings and emotions. So please take some time and just write them down, because if you put them in print and if you put them in front of you, it will be a whole lot easier for you to find a way to get around it. And then you might begin to understand that by virtue of your own words or actions, you are pushing yourself down further. On the other hand, there are those of you that are already familiar with languaging correctly or differently, and you're saying more positive things. And you're noticing that, there's some things in life I can't really change, but I can change my attitude about it. I can change my response about it. Hey, I can't change the fact that I got abused as a child, okay? But I, as an adult, as a mature person, as a reasonably thinking person, I can change my response. I can say, "You know what? It sucks. I don't like it. But guess what? I'm not going to let it control me anymore." So some things you can change just by changing the way you think or act. And those things that you cannot change how you feel or how you respond. Does anyone have a question at this time? It's amazing how quickly the time goes. And as many of you know, us girls in the South, we're like ever-ready batteries. You wind us up and we talk, and I hardly ever let anybody get a word in edgewise. So just off the floor, is there anyone, and if you've muted your system, you'll have to unmute when you want to talk, but this is not my co-host yet. Is there anyone who has a question or a comment, or would they like to interject one of their own target phrases that they have noticed about themselves? Does anyone have a comment? Okay. All right. So another product of speaking, languaging in a way that does not serve you well is that you are, the more you say it, the more you're going to embrace it. If you're not feeling bad, if you're feeling bad, if you're not feeling good, and if you keep telling everyone how poorly you feel, then you're embracing that experience, and you'll be real surprised at how much worse you're actually going to feel. So you have to think in terms of, where do I want the quality of my experience to be? What are the words that I can say that will take this experience to a better place? This has to do with whether we're talking about a relationship. Maybe somebody has, maybe it's not the best relationship. Maybe you're not in the very best place. Maybe it's very discouraging. And you can either continue to talk about that and feel bad about it, or you can make choices to do something about it. One of the first things you can do is learn how to say something differently about it. If you remember this too, that people in our lives, people around us, whether it's an employee, an employer, whether it's someone in our relationship, a family member, people will rise to your level of expectation. And so if you have, let's say, a child that is not doing well, they're hanging around with the wrong kids, they're doing things that gotten a little too sassy, a little problematic or whatever, and then they come home and maybe you found out that they were out drinking or something, and then a normal response in your environment might be to say, that was such a stupid thing that you did. I can't believe you were that stupid. And just in that one statement, you just set a plateau of stupidity for that person to rise to. Well, they're there, and they're going to meet you right there. It would be okay to say, you know what, I'm disappointed because I know you're very intelligent, you're smarter than that. And I just need you to know that I trust you to make good choices and good decisions in the future. We all make mistakes. And the beauty of making that mistake is that we learn and we grow. And I just need you to know that I trust you. I know that you know the difference between right and wrong. And I see that you will make better choices in the future. So all of a sudden, you set the plateau a little higher. And particularly when it comes to children, our children want to please us. They want to work with us as much as they possibly can. So if we can find a loving, nurturing, caring way to language in such a way that we set the bar a little higher, and we set it not by saying, okay, I expect you to be a straight A student, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I mean. I mean by saying, you're a very intelligent person, you're doing great, I'm so proud of you, setting it where you are reinforcing the good things that they're doing. So anybody have a question or comment? Okay, the gentleman that I had asked, if you will unmute your phone, and I have asked you to share any thoughts that you have, anything that might have occurred in your life when you have either languaged poorly or you have learned to language more powerfully, more effectively, where the world is mirroring something different back to you. So just whatever you want to say, because I didn't tell you early enough because I didn't want this to be scripted. I really wanted it to be off the cuff. So if you want to identify yourself, you can.
Well, it is off the cuff because I didn't know until just now. So I'll just share the first thing that comes to my mind. I think it was about a month ago, I noticed that I called the people that I regularly call to have conversations. I was getting different responses from them where they were making the calls shorter. One person said, greeted me on the phone by saying, I don't want to hear any bad news or I don't want to hear any complaints. That was the greeting instead of hello. Another,
my goodness.
Yeah.
Imagine the nerve of that person.
Right. Well, another person said, are you calling because you're in a needy position or a needy mood? And when I got 3 or 4 of those, I said, okay, there's a pattern here. So I just took that opportunity to take a look at how I was phrasing things, how I was looking at my life, and I thought that I was a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I just decided to make a change.
So it was not your intention at all that you were calling to be negative or to be needy. That was not where you didn't believe you were in that place. Is that correct?
I had no idea.
Okay. So how do you approach it differently? I'm assuming that you've made some different choices based on that mirroring effect to you.
I don't know how to answer that. I just am more aware when I pick up the phone how I'm going to, what is it I'm calling about, focus on the other person, talk about them. It's kind of like the theory to give rather than receive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to the other person rather than myself.
So, fair to say that even as we learn to language differently, being a listener and hearing what the other person is saying may be a very valuable tool.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Would anyone like to ask this gentleman a question? If you do, you'll have to unmute your phones if you've muted. Just hit the same button again. Does anyone want to ask a question? Okay. Let me ask you then, do you feel like that, as I heard you describe this, it sounded like more your casual, everyday conversations, perhaps with friends, is how this kind of, you got the feedback. Do you think that it was possible that that might be also playing out either with family or with work associates or in business settings? Is it possible that the same thing might have been occurring without your being aware of it?
Oh, absolutely. And as far as family is concerned, I realized that my behavior was learned behavior.
Okay.
And I was mirroring an event with a family member. But at the same time, in all my circles, I realized that from the very beginning. Well, when I say very beginning, I don't mean from birth. I've always been aware that the world is a mirror to me of myself. I'm just not always aware of it or haven't been aware of how much impact that had until this recent the experience I told you about.
Uh-huh. So, in changing the way you language with others, has that given you any positive feedback? Has it changed the relationship with these people that you've talked about?
I don't know if it's changed the relationship. I just realized that the conversations are more enjoyable, freer, lighter, and my particular needs have changed. I think I am not sure how to phrase that. So here we're talking about languaging.
Okay, now you know that thinking is one of my favorite words. When you start using that word think a little too often, and I'm not nitpicking here, but this is an opportunity for me to teach another aspect of this, is that when you say to people, I think da 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 da, then thinking is somewhat indecisive, and one could learn to say it is thus and so rather than I think it is thus and so, because then you're taking charge and command of the statement that you're making.
All right.
Okay. All right. So, a lesson learned because you learned about languaging and you have turned it around by languaging differently. And even, if I remember what you said, you're listening to other people and you're not as much into yourself as you are beginning to be into others. So, do you have a word of advice for the people that are listening? What is the simplest way to approach this? Or do they have to pick up the phone and call a friend one day and have their friend say something back to them? What advice would you share?
Well, I'm trying not to say I think. My advice would be to start paying attention to what people do say. I like speaking with I statements. I hate the word you to be used that way. I pay attention to the world around me, what people say to me, what they demonstrate, and I ask, is that something that I am doing? If I see friction or conflict, or if I feel that from somebody I'm having a conversation with, is that something that I am projecting? So my advice would be to pay attention, open your eyes, open your ears, and see if there's an opportunity there to see something about yourself.
Okay, now I don't know the answer to this, but I'm just going to play with this theory just a little bit and ask you this question. When you were having these conversations, is there any possibility that as you have the conversations, you either sit a certain way, you're in a certain place, could your actual physical posture, where you were sitting, how you were behaving, was that also a part of it without you perhaps even thinking about that? Is it possible?
Well, definitely, since most of it was on the phone, I would not even pay attention to that.
Okay.
And I had never thought about it until just now.
Okay. All right. So, in other words, if we were in a modality where we might not be languaging our best, and we've been doing this the same way, not only would we want to change the phrases or the way we're interacting with the person, we might want to change our actual posture or where we are when we handle the situation. So looking at it as a whole could be beneficial. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and another thing is if it's a pattern, like for me, I found it was a pattern of phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Change the time of the phone call.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I realized I was mirroring my mother's action. At certain times, she would make calls to the family.
Okay.
And
so, again, that imprinting, learned behavior, just as you had said early on, it was something that you had learned, you had observed in other family members, and all you did was you were the good student, you were the good pupil, you learned well, and you just carried it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for sharing. Now, would anyone, this is about the halfway mark, and I always open the floor up to ask for questions or comments. And if anyone would like to share anything regarding the thoughts that were just shared, that's fine. Or if you would like to interject another thought, or if you would like to throw out one of your own taglines, one of your favorite sayings, maybe it's something that you learned from a parent or a teacher said to you. This is a good time now to unmute and to share if you would like to make a comment. Anyone have anything to say?
Judy?
Yes.
It's Mercy.
Uh-huh.
I guess my question is, what I've seen is that speech or lately when I'm trying or I'm making changes in the way I speak, what I see is that it goes hand in hand with the training of my mind. It's almost like what I speak is an expression, it's a reflection of what I'm thinking. So what I'm doing differently is to stop before I talk, before I speak.
Rethink the sentence or rethink the process.
It's more to get in touch with what is the intention behind what I'm going.
There you go. Exactly. What is the real intention behind it?
Because, being an alcoholic, being a recovering alcoholic and addict, I feel like I have a comedian on my head. And all those voices that are there are telling me different things. But then I have to step out and check what is the truth in the situation. What is it that I really want to say that is going to be in a compassionate way without going back to being the victim of my imprinting, which was very abusive speech.
So effectively what you're saying then, what I'm hearing is that with all of the different voices, which could be imprintings or teachings, no matter where it came from, with all of these different voices being in your head, it would be real easy to embrace either 1, 2, 3, all of them, none of them, some of them. It would be really easy to embrace whatever those old feelings and that old imprinting is, and just to speak based on the hurt or the feeling or the need or the want of that particular voice.
Yeah, that's my challenge.
Okay. And so, and what I think I also heard you say is that you are beginning now to step outside of your situation, and you're perhaps finding that there is a different voice here, which is the true you, your voice, but you're having to step out of the multiple voices, the different phrases or the teachings or the imprintings that have been going on in your head for so much of your life, And now you're having to stop, take a deep breath, step out of it, and realize that yours is the most important voice of all, and yours is the voice that will ultimately have the greatest impact. Does that ring true at all?
Yeah, it does. And it's also stepping out and being in the present moment, because that then
Okay, did we lose you?
no, I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for that. Does anyone have a question regarding that or a comment or anything about anything that we just heard?
Judy?
Okay, one at a time. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't quite understand the speaker and you also when you said that one needs not to say, I think it is this, but it is this. Because conversely, I do, if you say, I think it is, you're not as directed as when you say it is.
Pat, it's a very good point, and there's not a thing in the world wrong with using the word I think when you're saying I think I'll go or I think the answer is or whatever. Nothing wrong with it, but when we get into languaging in this way and a person talks to me and verbalizes with me and they keep saying to me, and the gentleman who said that earlier was not doing that, but I wanted to just bring that point in, is that when you speak to me or you speak to someone else and you continually use the word thinking, I want you to use that as a caution, as a red flag to say, am I really thinking or can I possibly make a decision here? So weigh it one way or the other and understand if you use it too much, are you using it because you don't know or you're not willing to make a choice or not willing to make a decision? But there's nothing really wrong with saying, I think I can go. But if you constantly use that in your phraseology, in your conversation, in your communication with people, then just look at yourself, challenge yourself and say, wait a minute, is that a challenge word for me? Do I say that too much because I'm not willing to say, well, yes, I'll go, or no, I won't go? Or,
okay.
Hey, I'll let you know in 15 minutes if I can do this. So, yeah, good point. Good point, Pat. Thank you for bringing that up. So who was the other person that was also wanting to say something?
It was Barbara.
Okay.
What I wanted to say was we were listening to Mercy, and with what you were saying, for a long time, I felt like I had a board meeting going on in my head all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if my mama was chairing my board, and one thing, if my daddy was chairing it, or somebody else, something else, whoever was chairing my board, you know, who I was listening to. And one day I decided to become CEO of my own company.
There you go.
And I started chairing my own board and realizing that what was most important was to get in touch with what I believed, what I was willing to stand on, and stop the other voices.
And sometimes what you believe is not in direct correlation with what the board members have agreed upon, is it?
Most of the time when I was not congruent, it was because I was listening to them and it was contrary to what I believed.
But it does require an effort, and it's, in my opinion, it's a monumental step when we get to the place where we say, wait a minute, there's way too many voices, too many thoughts going on in my head. Somehow I have to step away from this. And I have to realize that I have a choice here, and I am the one. And as you said, Barbara, I'm the CEO of what's going on in my mind, in my body, and my spirit. So you have to think through it, but you have to get to that point of knowing that you have all of this going on in your head. Sometimes, go ahead, Barbara.
The thing that helped a lot was that they with the real Barbara, please take over.
There you go. There you go.
I'm going to mute out again.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, let's say that maybe there's someone that we know who has been suicidal at some point, might even be facing those kind of challenges now. And they have a lot of that languaging, those voices or those messages or the imprinting going on that says you're not worthy, you're not thin enough, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that. And maybe it's things that the person has heard throughout their life. Then they too have got to stop and they have got to say, wait a minute, all of these voices that I'm hearing are not mine. This is imprinting. This is languaging that maybe my mother did this to me. Maybe my mother was the one that told me, or maybe I even had a teacher that said I was stupid and I would never make it if I continued to work that way. So throughout the years, I have had all of this different kind of talk. To me, if I'm that person, then I'm saying, the world is mirroring a pretty dismal picture back to me. And if I look at this, golly, maybe I just need to check out. Maybe I don't need to be here. But what you have to do is you got to shatter that mirror and turn around and say, you know what, that's not my reality. That's not my voice. These are the voices of people that have languaged to me to tell me what I am. But the truth is, I can choose not to be that, or I can choose to be different, or I can choose to be better. I can embrace that life can be better. And hey, I'm smart. Maybe I didn't make the best grades, but I'm a tough kid and I'm smart and I'm street smart and I'm a lot of other things. Validation and positive languaging begins within you. And you must, the world can tell you one thing, but if you do not embrace it and you do not believe it, then you're in a completely different place. So that self-worth, that value, that self-esteem, it has to begin in you. You have to say, I am worth this choice to live, or I'm worth this choice not to drink or not to do drugs, or, hey, to stop worrying so much about my weight or whatever. I'm a good boss. I'm a good leader. I don't have to listen to what people are saying or what I think other people think about me. I can make a choice to realize that I'm an honorable person, I'm a good person, and I'm doing the best I can. And as long as you're languaging in the best way that you can, if you really will turn around when you start putting out, making good choices, and you're putting that different energy, that different vibe, if you will, if you're putting it out, the mirror is going to start showing you back who you are. And going back to the story that I opened with when I was asking the question of who am I, and Father says, ask not who you are, listen and others will tell you who you are. Eventually, that is exactly what happens. When I stopped listening, as Barbara would say, to the board that was going on in my head, when I stopped listening to the board and I started listening to what the genuine, real people around me were telling me, then I began to understand who I was. And if I didn't like the feedback, then all I needed to do was to change to get a different result. So questions from anyone at all on anything that we've talked about so far. Open mic now. So what questions?
I've been working with this guy, he's a friend of mine, and he does a lot of research about the 2012 event. And I just want to know, there seems to be some correlation between that date and an ascension process. And I'd like for you to make a comment about that, if you don't mind. Just curious to hear what your thoughts are about that.
Okay. Do I believe that we are going to have an ascension in 2012? Is that what you're saying?
We can phrase it like that if that works. Sure.
Well, frankly, I believe that we are in an ascension process anyway, and I'm not sure that I've ever said that to anyone exactly that way, but I believe that we are resonating differently, that there are a lot of things that are occurring, and part of this is evidenced by the world phenomena that we see. I mean, Greece is on fire. It is burning. 2/3 of the country is burning, and we have got heat waves in the south beyond anything that we've ever had, and they've got rain in Texas in places they've never had this kind of flooding and raining, and tornadoes occurring in places where they've never had tornadoes. But there are a lot of different things that are occurring, and from where I stand and look at things, I do believe that we are already in a process that, if we want to put a name, want to put a label on it, I could say, okay, we are already vibrating at a higher rate. Is that ascension? It could be. Could be exactly that. But will there be a formal ascension process in 2012? I don't believe that it will be in the manner that some of us hear about, where all of a sudden the skies open and we all rise. I don't believe that it will occur that way. I feel like we are already moving in that direction by virtue of we are working through processes. Our government is just working through processes. Our religions, our churches are working through processes. you don't have to look very far to see that there is a vibrational shift and that most of the negative things within each of us, within a place, within a country, within a religion, it is forcing the most negative components of the who we are to the surface, giving us an opportunity to do something about it, to refine and define it differently. Now, you want to ask another question based on what I just said?
Yeah, I love the way you lead me into my questions. Yeah.
One day I'll become intuitive. What can I say?
Yeah. I'm gonna grow up to be a psychic someday.
I'm going to call the 1-800 psychic hotline here any minute now.
Yeah. Well, the next logical question is that the for lack of a better word, the negative elite or the people that are actually running the world right now, that do you think that they're going to have a change of heart, or they're going to simply just give away their power, or do you think that the people are going to actually revolt to the point where they say we're not going to listen to that anymore?
Well, maybe a little of all of what you just said. I believe that there are many among us who have made mistakes. And out of our mistakes, we learn and we grow and we progress and we become better at who we are and what we do. So I feel like if we're talking about government, if we're talking about religion, whatever we're talking about, I believe that it is possible to rise out of the mistakes and the errors that we made. Interesting enough, though, is that we don't usually do that until the light gets shined on it and until it is surfaced and we're forced to have to deal with it. There's not a lot of us that will volunteer and just go ahead and say, wow, I was crummy when I did that and I need to do this and I'm moving differently. So I feel like it's probably a combination of all of that. Some of us will simply require higher standards, maybe in some political office or campaign, some group or something, we're going to hold them to higher standards. And therefore, someone may have to leave their office and we may get a different person in. So it may be that in groups we will cause these things to shift and we will change. It may be that some of us will simply carry ourselves better. Our vibration, our resonance will have changed sufficiently that we are looking at things more empathetically, more compassionately, more caring, more nurturing, and that we may bring the world around to a better place. I know that we have a lot of children that are being born today with that very, very distinct purpose in mind, is to help shift and change the world. So kind of feel like it's a little bit of all of the things that you said, with no one particular thing being the exact answer, because we don't all respond to the same thing. We all approach change and shift differently. So feel like it's a little bit of all of what you said. Another question?
Well, along that line, Judy, may I share something that happened to me today with group?
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay, it has to do with the gentleman and what he was talking about. And I was in a car wash today, and I thought of you, Judy, because a man came up to me who had absolutely the most brilliant blue eyes you've ever seen, and he started a conversation with me. And I can't tell you all that conversation because it'd take another hour. But he talked about the fires in Greece. He talked about the warming where he had been with the glaciers. He was a world traveler, a very knowledgeable man. He talked about President Bush, and not just Bush, but the whole everybody who was in Washington, and he wasn't specifically negative about anything, but about them. But what he was talking about was the huge situation we find ourselves in, and can't do. We at this moment, he said that there seems so very little that we can do. And he continued with this and went across the country, explaining this in many ways. And then he said to me, that there will be a time when God will have to come back because we're going to destroy each other unless God does come back and save the planet and save us. And I said, well, what religion are you? And he said, I am of no religion. But at any rate, the language that he used and the information that he gave me was extraordinarily well learned.
Well, and let me just add my own 2 cents worth for whatever it is worth, is to say this. That might be exactly so, but I do firmly believe that we are the ones that are in charge, and that change and shift begins within each of us. And so often we get caught up in the pains of our own individual lives, and it is more important to us, to deal with what we're dealing with, and that sometimes we do forget the more global impact, and we think that that is so large, so overwhelming that we can't do anything about it. But I so wholeheartedly disagree that we can't do anything about it. I believe in the power of prayer, if you will, or positive thought, or change, or let the change begin within you. Change your own life, change the way you language for yourself, for your family. And it's like dropping a rock into a pool of water, and that ripple beginning, and it continues on and on and on and on and on, and you never quite know where it goes. So I just will never give up on humanity as a whole. I know we've got the good, the bad, the ugly in everything that we do, everything we experience, but I just cannot give up on humanity and say that, we're going to have to be destroyed before we're going to get it. I just don't believe that we're that way. I feel like, and this is just my opinion, and we are all entitled to see this differently, and it doesn't mean my opinion is correct, but I do feel like that's what's happening right now. I feel like we are purging in so many different ways because we as humanity have said enough is enough, and we have to bring things to the surface in a way that we will see it. It must be visible so that we will language about it, or that we will change it if we can. And I feel like we are exactly in that phase of our existence of where the vibrational shift is bringing these things to the surface so that we will have the opportunity to make choices and to change things. Now, will we always do it right? I doubt it. Will we always do it timely? I doubt it. But there is such a monumental spiritual interest in this going to the best possible place that we have people reincarnating in rapid succession to get back in to help change based on the things that they learned in their lifetime. We have children that are coming in. So will 2012 be this monumental, big, huge ascension of some sort? I don't believe so. Is it possible? It is possible. But I still believe in humanity. I believe that we all care enough that we will say a prayer, or we will do a positive thing, and that ripple will affect another person. It's just like, Pat, the man having a conversation with you had a very profound impact on you, and now you've shared it with, you don't even know how many people are in the conference call. But
I want to tell you, I have to add to this right now, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
When I left him, my thought was exactly like yours. That we have, I left positive and thinking positively. Right. He was very, very knowledgeable and extremely well traveled.
Pat, wouldn't it be interesting if his?
I left thinking just like you did, that we all have an influence for the positive to prevent what I think right now in our world is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, I would agree that it is a perilous and dangerous times in many ways. But now, wouldn't it be interesting if his entire contact with you was meant to give you an opportunity just to see how you think? Sometimes those people that walk in and out of our lives, they're really not there to challenge us or to change our thought process, but they are an opportunity to see how you feel. They languaged with you in such a way that you said, as you did, Pat, I came away in the positive thought process saying, there's hope for us all. But that's maybe what our languaging is about, taking it not only from personally and how we are affecting our own lives. If we could learn to language different within ourselves, within our family, within our community, our school, our church, our synagogue, whatever, then one touches another, touches another, touches another. Maybe that's what relanguaging is all about. Maybe we need to learn that the way we carry ourselves, the way we, you walk in and out of stores and you ignore people. You don't even see who's there anymore. But maybe if you look up and look into the eyes of people and gently smile or nod your head or whatever, that is languaging. That is validating that person to say, you are worthy enough that I can speak to you. You're one of humanity. You're a very valuable soul in the greatest. And you never know when that little bit of mirroring back to another person might change their life if you mirror back in a very positive way. So open the floor. We've got a few more minutes to anyone else that would like to express an opinion, or mine's not the only opinion, and I'm always open to other thoughts. So anyone would like to say something, please go ahead.
The one thing I'd like to add to that is that recognizing each other, it is said that if we make eye contact for 15 seconds, we have recognized that person as another human being.
That's a very good point.
And I believe that's right.
Very good point. And, we all probably are guilty of that, of going to the grocery store and worrying more about the head of lettuce we're there to buy or the steaks we're there to get or whatever. And, we just kind of run in and we run out. But, it's a strange thing is that if you stop and smile or joke with a person just a wee bit, next thing you know, it's very infectious and they're talking back to you and other people in the line or around or whatever are reacting to it. It doesn't take much. So other questions or thoughts? Anywhere you want to go with it. You got a couple of minutes. Bring up anything you'd like to. Okay. If you will please, for the next few days, write down your catchphrases. Look at where you're at with the things you're saying, how you are approaching your own self. What does your language say about you? And then go outside of your circle to your partner or your children, your family, or your coworker, and look at how you are responding to them. Are you mostly negative when you say things to them? Then you're probably going to get mostly negative results back. So please, for the next few days, watch your languaging. Look and see what your catchphrases are. And if you have some that you're not real sure how to get around them, send me an email. I will help you learn how to change the way you are saying things. I'm not saying I know more than you do. I'm saying, hey, two heads are better than one, and maybe I can give you a little bit different way to say it that might make all the difference in the world. So for the next few days, you don't like your mama? Hey, think about the things you say. Think about the way you respond. Remember that you can say a prayer, you can do heart-to-heart work, you can step aside if that's the only way to deal with it, or that can be a coworker, it can be a partner, it can be any person. But not only do I want you to be aware of your languaging and how you are robbing yourself of your abilities to move forward in life, or how you might be robbing yourself of your ability to embrace and experience things differently, I also want you to be very cognizant, very conscious, very aware of how you mirror back to other people, because what you mirror to another could be as important as what you say. Because sometimes, and ladies, let's just face it, we all have that ability. Men have always said this about us, is that with one look we can say 1,000 words. And that's true, we really can. So we might want to be cognizant of what we mirror back. In other words, if we give them that very disapproving look, then our mirroring back says an awful lot to them and says something about us. So pay attention to what you say about yourself, about others, but also pay attention to what you mirror back to other people. If you're in a checkout line and the person's had a tough day, don't match them in that place of sadness or tiredness, fatigue, or wherever. Don't match them where they are. Smile and say, "Hey, you look like you've had a great day today," or "Wow, is it close to quitting time? Are you going to be getting off soon? I bet you'll be happy, won't you?" Yeah, find some little thing to mirror back a little different than what you can see that they're feeling, and see if you can't shift and change that. And if you can learn to language differently for yourself and to mirror something back, if you will think of yourself, and this is a bit of a challenge, if you will create a mirror all the way around you, a mirror that shines away from you and shines out to all parts of the world, and I challenge you, think in large terms here, because if you think in limited terms, then you get limited results. So I want you to think out of the box, okay? I want you in your quiet time before you go to sleep tonight, I want you to think that there is a mirror outside of you shining out to the world as a whole. And I want you to gather up all of the love that you can possibly gather up. And just for whatever the moment is, think in terms of sending the very best thoughts that you can to impact not only your family, your coworkers, Congress, the Catholic Church, the Mormon Church, the Protestants, the whatevers, the people that are hungry and dying in Darfur and other places in the world. Send out, mirror out the very best of what you can be before you go to sleep. And you know what? When you wake up tomorrow, I'm betting that your day will begin in a much more positive light. It has been a real pleasure to be with you again. A very interesting topic, so many different places that we can go. I appreciate the two people that had agreed to speak and to share some of their personal thoughts. That's not always easy. And so I very much respect you and appreciate that you are willing to do that. I appreciate the questions and the comments that have been shared. And again, we've been able to go a little bit beyond conventional wisdom. We've begun to think outside of the box so that we can learn to language a little differently and to mirror something different that might be very beneficial for the rest of the world. Thanks a lot. Good night and God bless.